We'll get onto welfare in just a minute, but bearing all that in mind, why aren't the Conservatives therefore agitating for a general election right now? You should be leading the pack on this, and I fear you're not leading the pack because the Tories aren't ready, because you're behind in the polls. We've got Kemi Badenoch talking about a reset.
So, well, look, it's then the gift of the Prime Minister. We assume that's going to be Andy Burnham to decide when to dissolve Parliament. Labour have a very large majority. It seems likely to me that they will be in office for some time, and it's then our job, obviously, to hold them to account.
Well, there you go. This is GB News Originals. I'm Emily Carver. Please do give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. And do leave a comment. Let me know what you think.
Count as a responsible opposition. We've done that to great effect. It forced about 20 U-turns on the current Labour government, and we need to keep doing that. Whenever an election is called, Camilla, we will be ready for it. So that is the position that we have as a party. So, well, as I say, that is entirely up to the Prime Minister whether he, Andy Burnham, as it will be, as to whether he decides to go for that. We will be ready. We will be ready for a general election whenever that comes.
Yeah, that's different to saying that you want one. You should be agitating for a general election. If he thinks there's room on tax, he hasn't got a mandate.
OK, Camilla, when I come on here, you typically say to me things like, are you going to call for X to resign immediately? Are you going to call for Y to step down immediately? Are you going to call for a general election? What we have to do as the opposition, understanding where we are, which is that we are not the majority party in Parliament. It is something over which we don't have control. But what we do have control over is ruthlessly holding this government to account and going out there and putting forward a more positive approach and plan for our economy, and that's what I have been talking about and Kemi has been talking about, getting on top of welfare, getting on top of public spending, getting taxes down on businesses, getting the economy growing again so that we can face into the very real challenges that we face as a country.
OK, well, one of the reasons you may be resisting leading the charge for a general election now, even though Andy Burnham himself called for one in 2022 when the Tories were having their own leadership problems, one of the reasons might be because Kemi Badenoch isn't ready. She wants to reset her entire party, possibly reset the shadow cabinet. So your job's safe, Sir Mel?
Look, I am doing my job, and I'm confident that I will continue to do my job. In terms of the party being in the right position, Kemi is absolutely right that we need candidates of absolute conviction who are true Conservatives, who are going to bring to our party and hopefully in time to government the kind of experience that's going to get to grips with the deep-seated challenges that our country has. We have had over 2,000 applicants to fight seats up and down the country, people from all walks of life, people who have real experience that will be able to be brought to bear in the event that we form the next government. And that is exactly the right approach to take. And as I say, whenever this general election comes, whenever it may be, we will be ready.
But she might need to have a purge of the wets, might she? She might have to have a purge of the closet Lib Dems in the pack. Also, she might need to get rid of people who are, quotes, cautious about our departure from the ECHR. Now, that's a word you'd have described to use that plan back to The Guardian back in the day. Do you still feel cautious about the plan to leave the ECHR, Sir Mel?
I always felt, as indeed Kemi did, that this was a serious issue that shouldn't be rushed at and jumped into, that we should look at it in great detail, which we did, and took significant legal opinion on that and took our time to make sure that we got it right. We've arrived at the right conclusion. And getting back to your point, Camilla, about the candidates of the future for the Conservative Party, Kemi has made it very clear that all have to sign up to us leaving the ECHR, as indeed they have to sign up to changes around net zero so we can get our economy going and not be pouring ever endless amounts of money into carbon taxes and green subsidies and so on. She has been extremely clear on that, and that will be central to our manifesto that we take to the country whenever this general election is called.
Final question. Stephen Timms' initial report on the welfare system says that PIP payments, personal independent payments, are not fit for purpose. Who would you take them away from first?
Well, so what we need to do is we need to look at the whole basis of PIP, which is as a payment to compensate, at least in part, those additional costs that people with disability have. Now, at the moment, we have a system that is not fit for purpose because it is far too blunt, it's far too expensive, and it's growing very rapidly in terms of its budget. I actually, when I was Secretary of State at Work and Pensions, had enacted a consultation on PIP, which was interrupted by the general election, but looking at ways at how we address those kind of challenges and get on top of the welfare bill. And in fact, on the work capability assessment, which is the gateway into these long-term sickness and disability benefits, I had brought in reforms that the OBR said would mean 450,000 fewer people going on to those benefits. That's the kind of action that we need to see from this government. The problem is that Labour scrapped all of my reforms on day one when they came into office, which tells you a lot.
Just to confirm, Sir Mel, PIP payments for mild anxiety and depression must go, mustn't they?
Areas like mild anxiety, depression, mild depression, ADHD are areas where what we know, not that PIP is actually an in or out of work benefit, is there under both circumstances, but what we know about those conditions is that work actually is central to people coping with those kind of challenges. It is that discipline of going into work, the fact that people are able to have discussions and interactions with co-workers, those discussions at the water cooler and so on. These are important approaches to actually addressing some of those conditions. So in essence, I think you're absolutely right.
So Mel Stride, thank you very much indeed for joining me on GB News this morning. Thank you very much.
Condolences to her family, to her friends, and the many people that she knew. My reflections of Anne Camilla were of an extraordinary lady, somebody who combined having that really strong sense of what she believed. Not everybody agreed with her, but nobody could say she was anything other than a woman of great conviction. But she combined it with extraordinary energy, great charm actually. She often had a twinkle in her eye and a rather wonderful sense of humour and a rather distinctive laugh that I'll never forget. And I did spend some time with her after I was first elected in 2010, going around various garden fetes and church fetes and things of that nature. And she was just great fun to be around actually, and she is a very great loss.
She was many, many things, a very decent woman whenever I encountered her. What she certainly wasn't was a bigot, as Peter Tatchell has now had to apologise for saying. Why do some on the left think that people on the right are fair game, even in death?
Well, I think he has clearly made a serious error and has reflected that in his apology. I just think sometimes in life people jump too quickly onto Twitter and say things that are wholly inappropriate, and they then very quickly come to regret, and that appears to be an example of this. And I think there is a broader point, Camilla, about the nature of political discourse in our country, and I think we should be, taking the temperature down. We should use these terrible, terrible events such as Anne's death as a time to reflect rather than a time to jump in and start making statements of the kind of nature that we saw with Peter Tatchell.
So Mel, we don't know the circumstances around her death, and a man has been arrested, so we need to be careful with any speculation. But in general, we've got a story on the front of the Mail on Sunday right now. Reform MPs have stepped up their own security. They're now under watch 24 hours a day. What are the Conservatives doing? I presume that there have been meetings about this. Do you feel safe as Shadow Chancellor?
Well, look, Camilla, we live in an open democracy where it's very important that we maintain that access to politicians on the part of the public. But it's also the case that there are incidents that will occur that underscore the importance of being vigilant. Now, Parliament itself has various processes and support around the security of members of Parliament, and I know that a number of MPs may well be engaging with them as a consequence. But I think there's a very important point here. here, Camilla, which is that with this terrible incident around Anne Widdecombe, we shouldn't speculate as to what the motivation was for the person that committed this terrible atrocity. The police have ruled out any terrorist motivation. It's not clear whether there was a political motivation or not at this stage, and in that sense I think speculation is probably unhelpful.
OK, press conference coming.
Power, quiet revolutions, and the architectural shift of Westminster. What they are not telling you about the new order. The political architecture of Westminster is quietly shifting under our feet, yet the collective gaze remains fixated on the visible surface, missing the profound structural transformations beneath. Welcome to Britain Underneath, the place where we unearth the silent power plays, the institutional manoeuvrings, and the hidden mechanics shaping the real future of the United Kingdom. If you find yourself constantly searching for what lies beyond standard press releases and polished media appearances, take a breath, stay informed, and consider subscribing to Britain Underneath right now. Supporting the channel helps us continue bringing you these sharp, independent deep dives. Now, let us dive into the shifting currents of British power. To truly understand contemporary governance, one must look past the theatrical debates at Prime Minister's questions. The real story lies in the subtle decentralisation of authority, the rewiring of civil service operations, and the strategic realignment of foreign and domestic policy. When leadership shifts focus toward structural devolution, regional hubs, and altered diplomatic ties, it represents more than routine policy adjustments. It signifies a fundamental rewrite of the state mechanism itself. Consider the recent tactical posturing surrounding local government revenue streams, infrastructure spending, and international defence commitments. The establishment often frames these as isolated administrative decisions, yet they are component parts of a much larger strategy. By redirecting fiscal power toward regional authorities and simultaneously altering our stance on European alignment, the government is essentially constructing a multi-layered apparatus designed to insulate central governance from immediate voter backlash. It is a quiet revolution, executed in plain sight. Before we explore the broader diplomatic ripple effects, please take a brief moment to support our independent work. If you value mature, sharp, and uncompromising political analysis, please subscribe to the channel. It genuinely helps Britain Underneath deliver these deep insights directly to you every week. Looking closely at the diplomatic front, the UK's evolving posture toward European security frameworks and bilateral defence initiatives illustrates a sophisticated balancing act. High-profile international visits and joint ventures are frequently reported with performative optimism, but the underlying strategy is far more calculated. Whitehall is leveraging defence capability share and technical partnerships as a primary currency to renegotiate trade leverage and institutional access across the continent. Rather than pursuing grand symbolic treaties, the current approach relies on functional, quiet integrations that bypass traditional political resistance. Domestically, the strategy is equally deliberate. The steady overhaul of public sector frameworks, welfare structures, and regional economic mandates is reshaping daily life without the need for dramatic statutory overhauls. When central departments delegate fiscal accountability downward to regional mayors while maintaining control over foundational tax mechanisms, they effectively distribute responsibility while retaining ultimate authority. This subtle division ensures that when regional economic pressures arise, the blame falls locally, leaving the primary state apparatus largely protected, This brings us to the core reality that every keen observer of British politics must recognise. Power in modern Westminster is rarely seized through sudden, overt actions. It is steadily accrued through administrative adjustments, quiet regulatory shifts, and the calculated management of public narrative. The media landscape often directs attention toward personal rivalries and immediate headline controversies, leaving the long-term institutional redesign virtually unscrutinised. Understanding these deeper structural mechanics requires looking beneath the immediate noise of the daily news cycle. By systematically examining how regional authorities are granted targeted powers, how defence policy dictates international economic standing, and how institutional rules are subtly amended, we gain an accurate view of where the nation is genuinely heading.
The political landscape will continue to evolve rapidly, but those who pay attention to the foundational structures rather than the surface performance will never be caught unprepared. Thank you for taking the time to stay informed with us today. If you want to keep discovering what truly happens behind the closed doors of British power, take a breath, subscribe to Britain Underneath, and ensure you turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming investigations. Return here for our next analysis, where we will continue to look past the surface and unearth the truths defining our nation.